Okay, welcome to our series One to One with John. We've done a few with the work that he does with partners. This one, I feel I want to cut down on my drinking, is when you work with drinkers. Question,
Yeah.
how often did you feel that when you were drinking?
What, I feel I need to cut down?
Yeah.
I think I felt it quite a lot, and whether I would admit it out loud was another matter, but there was times when I thought, nah, this is, this is a problem. But I always had this feeling of, this is me today, but tomorrow I'll sort it.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tomorrow I'll sort it out, It was always mañana,
Okay. So there was an acknowledgement that something needed to happen.
Absolutely. I mean, if we look at change is a process. It's not actually an event. It's not I go, my drinking's fine. Oh, I better change. It doesn't tend to happen like that. It tends to be, there are stages. The couple of American psychologists did this wheel of change when they started off with a pre-contemplator, they called it, which is basically, I don't have a problem, therefore, I'm not even thinking about it, Then it's contemplator, so maybe I've got a bit of a problem, but you're not actually doing anything about it. Then there's preparer, and then there's actioner.
Okay.
So these are stages that people go through. They don't tend to, think about anything, like your fitness, your weight, or whatever. You start and think, well, maybe I should do something about this. Sometime, But once you get into sort of preparer, then you say, well, I'm going to go on a diet, or I'm going to start exercising on the 1st of March, or I'm going to do that. And then the 1st of March comes, and then you say, right, I'm doing it now.
Okay.
So these are stages that people go through. Now, these stages can be short or long, but usually you can see them there.
So these particular clients, where are they, contemplating or preparing? Or both?
Sorry, which clients are these?
The drinkers, when they come to you and they drink.
Very often they're a mixture, really. Sometimes they're contemplators. Sometimes they are actioners. They actually want to do something about their drinking. Now, what might be happening is that, it might be their boss, which is a couple of people, it might be their family who's putting pressure on them, or it might be even themselves.
But they've done something silly and,
they realise that
maybe a near miss in the car, nearly run into someone or like that.
Are lots of things like that,
So they come in and they say, I want to cut down my drinking. Well, let's talk a bit, because the Bottled Up for Drinkers does talk about reduced drinking, controlled drinking. So what do you feel about controlled drinking? Presumably that's what they'd like to do, because they don't want to lose the drink.
The first one who comes to me and says, I want to stop drinking, is going to be the first.
Right, okay, so that's very rare.
It's people don't come. Okay. Most people who have got a problem with drink, alcohol plays a big part in their lives. It gives them something. You may say, okay, well, why do they drink? Because they're an alcoholic. Well, they're addicted. That's true in some cases, but also it still gives them something. Even if by the end of my drinking, what the alcohol gave me was relief from the symptoms of the hangovers and and the bad things that had happened because of my drinking for the past week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So it gave me relief. It
used to give you confidence. That's why you started.
That's where it started. It started by giving me confidence, and it ended up by taking away fear. That was really what was happening there. Most people become addicted to a substance because of the good things it gives them, but the addiction is maintained by, relief of the bad things.
Okay, so if I'm a client and I've been prodded to come by family or something that's happened, and they say, I want to control my drinking, that's a big step in itself, isn't it? You
It's
know,
a
if someone's
huge-
watching this video.
For some people, it's an enormous step. You know,
Yeah.
it's maybe the first acknowledgement out loud of actually having a problem.
Okay, so it's a very important moment when they come on and say that to you.
It is, and I'm always, I always feel privileged when somebody comes and says, "Here I am, you know, help me."
Yeah.
I always feel very privileged in that, you know, because I'm in a position of trust at that point.
So just listen, if you're drinking and thinking of coming, what he's saying is the first thing he feels for you is not, oh dear, but respect.
Absolutely,
It's really important that you listen to that
I
bit.
know what that step's like.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's like, you know, I remember as a kid going to the Bonaccord Baths in Aberdeen and went up onto the Dale, and it's huge. You know, especially when you're only 12 and they're looking off, and then
This is the diving board we call in England.
yeah, sorry,
the diving board.
up in the diving board, you
Yeah.
know, the top diving board, and I looked down and I thought, oh, and I could see all these people looking up at me, and I thought, shame, I've got to do it. So I did it. I dived off it, you know, once, and never did it again. But it was such. And when I admitted I had a drinking problem, it was a bit like that. It was like staring into the abyss, because you feel life's never going to be the same again. For whatever reason, it's never going to be the same again. So yes, I have a lot of respect for anybody that does that, you know, and a lot of compassion, because I know what it's like.
Yeah. So it would be a good place to come. And again, if you go to meetings and groups and stuff, you've got people that are all going through the same narrative of stepping away from something that has been so important to them.
Yeah.
So can you control your drinking?
Okay, the answer to this is yes, no, and maybe.
Okay.
Okay, right. If we go back to the research, okay, then what it suggests is that there are some people can control drinking. Who they are, nobody can tell.
Right.
There is not an assessment process you can say, you know, yes, you're somebody that can control it. However, if you are going to control it, there are certain things that might make it more probable, not necessarily, you know, definite, but probable.
Do you go through that with people? I know I'd like them to come and go through it with you rather than talk about things out here. But do you try that with people? Do you go through it with people?
I do.
Okay.
I've, you know, with a few people, I've done this. But the thing is, people don't always enjoy that process. You know, because what they are hoping to do is really turn the clock back.
Right,
You know,
okay.
they're hoping to run the clock back. See, when I was 20, I could go out, you know, and have 10 pints, and it never bothered me, you know. And they're going, yeah. And when you were 20, you could probably, you know, run a marathon without even training. You know, you can't do it. And that's what we forget. We can't do what we used to do. Time moves on, and we move on. So it's not an easy thing to control drinking, you know. And the first thing you have to do really is start and break habits. You need to break old habits, break old triggers. You know, the cues that you have about drinking. You know, drinking is sort of the desire, but there's also the habit that forms. If you go every Friday night, you know, or even every night after work, you know, and drink at a certain time, then it's habit forming.
Yeah.
You know, if you associate it with certain feelings or certain places or certain people, then again you have to start and break all of these cues, the associations with these cues. You know, and that takes time. So what I suggest to people, strongly suggest to people, is that if they are going to do controlled drinking, then they have to do a period of abstinence. And that doesn't always go down terribly well. But the reason for it is not because I have any sort of prudish sort of beliefs in it. It's just I know that if they don't do this, and if they don't actually break some of the habits, then it's not going to work. You see, it takes 3 months to form a habit, and it takes 3 months to break a habit. You know, And unless you do that, then, as I say, it's just not going to happen. I mean, I could go into the science of it, but we don't really want that at this moment in time. So very often people go, "Oh, not so sure about that," or they start off on it and then get fed up, go away.
I think you will work with what they give you, because again, going around this wheel of change, sometimes the people have to have a go at things. I mean, if you think, oh no, I can control it now, you will work with that, won't you? I mean, you won't say no, you won't.
No, absolutely. I mean, part of the wheel of change, and we continue on with the wheel of change, there are two outcomes from the wheel of change. One is relapse and one is maintenance, And what I have to say is that it is a wheel of change because people tend to go around it more than once,
Right, okay.
Yeah. And what they find is that relapse is part of that, relapse. But relapse is negative, yes, but it's also, there's positives in it, because you learn what you can't do.
Yeah.
You learn some things that you shouldn't do. The people who, they used to talk about it as the £20 Coca-Cola, they go into the pub and they sit with all their mates and buy rounds with their mates, but they're sitting with a Coca-Cola, and you think, that's not going to last, because you're just doing exactly what you used to do with all the same cues, in the same atmosphere with the same people, and inevitably they end up drinking. Now, it might be possible for somebody to know it, but you're making it hard for yourself. And that's what I was saying right at the beginning. It's about doing things that make it probable that there'll be a better outcome.
So presumably you have been through people when you work with drinkers on all the bits of that wheel of change then?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
All of them. Yes, I get people who come, and say, my wife sent me, but, let me tell you about my drinking. And I think, are you asking for therapy? Or are you bucking for sainthood? Because I'm not quite sure here. You tell me how wonderful you actually are, how you never do this, you never do that, you never do the next thing. I think, and that's when, maybe my compassion is slightly less than it was in the beginning.
Well, the grandiose and...
Yeah, because then I sort of go, and I try and sort of, I mean, quite often when I'm talking to drinkers, I sort of put the professor to one side and I bring out the drunk.
Yeah, just talk about your experience.
Yeah, and then say, I know this is true. Why? Because I've lived it.
Yeah.
And they might argue with my science, but they can't argue with my experience.
Yeah. Can I just say one thing that I do say will happen if you work with John is the number of times I hear people laughing when you're, that you do. I try to do it with my counselling room to try and do it with affection and humour, because you just need that as you do the journey. It can all become so intense, and so I do hear him laughing, and I'm glad for that. I like that bit in him. So. It won't be, he will try and make the journey a good one, and even at times, because actually to laugh at yourself really helps sometimes, doesn't it? In these sort of
absolutely, and I mean, that's one of the things. If you go into an AA room, you'll hear a lot of laughter, especially Glaswegian AA rooms. There really is a lot of laughter in there, because you have to laugh at yourself. You can't. If you take yourself too seriously, you drive yourself nuts. But I mean, I'd like to have lighter sessions because I don't think I could cope with them otherwise. I'm not laughing at the person, and very often I'm laughing at myself.
So to bring this to a close, so if you are thinking about coming and having counselling with John, and you come with that question, you'll get someone who understands the science of drinking, but also you will get someone who thinks, I understand that because I've been there.
Yeah.
I think that's really helpful. Talking to someone that knows your journey, particularly with the drinking, because it's kind of so it has been his specialist subject, experientially as a drunk, and scientifically as a professor. But bottom line, he is here to help you give up drinking or whatever it is to make your relationships and your world a safe and good place.
I've got a PhD in the science, and I've got a PhD in the experience. I can assure you.
Yeah. So thank you for listening, and again, come and join. There's a few more in these series, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.